Shalom and welcome to another reading. Today is the 18th day of the month, so we're going to read chapter 18. Which book are we going to read from in chapter 18? Today we're going to choose to read from Beresheet, otherwise known as the book of Genesis, chapter 18. And this is in the Stone edition of the Jewish Publication Society, Hebrew and English translation, the English translation from the Hebrew. So I just want to back up and do a couple of the last verses in chapter 17 before continuing into 18. On that very day was Abraham circumcised with Ishmael his son, and all the people of his household, born in his household, and purchased for money from a stranger, were circumcised with him. Turn the page, chapter 18. Yahweh appeared to him in the plains of Mamre, while he was sitting at the entrance of the tent in the heat of the day. Before I continue on, the Hebrew prints the name Yud-He-Vav-He. I'm choosing to pronounce that Yahovah. The Jewish Publication Society replaces that with Hashem, which means the name. Ha is the, and Shem is name. So instead of pronouncing his name, their understanding is that it avoids the risk of bringing shame to his name if you just don't pronounce it at all. I can understand that concern, but I don't agree with that. His name is powerful, and I say if it's written his name, then that's how it was intended to be read out loud. The Father didn't give the scriptures so that we can read it aloud, just to replace his name with something else and replace other words with other words. And if he wanted it to be done that way, then why didn't he just write it that way in the first place? He appeared at the burning bush and explained and told Moses what his name was. Okay. So, we've established from the last couple of verses of chapter 17 that we're talking about Abraham here. He had just circumcised Ishmael, his son, and he circumcised his whole household. And then, I don't know if it's shortly after or a long time after, or it follows somehow right after that, that this is the scene that happened. Yahweh appeared to him in the plains of Mamre while he was sitting at the entrance of the tent in the heat of the day. He lifted his eyes and saw, and behold, 3 men were standing over him. He perceived, so he ran toward them from the entrance of the tent, and bowed toward the ground. And he said, My Lord, if I find favor in your eyes, please pass not away from your servant. Let some water be brought and wash your feet, and recline beneath the tree. I will fetch a morsel of bread that you may sustain yourselves. Then go on, inasmuch as you have passed your servant's way. They said, Do so, just as you have said. So Abraham hastened to the tent to Sarah and said, Hurry, 3 seahs of meal, fine flour, knead and make cakes. Then Abraham ran to the cattle, took a calf, tender and good, and gave it to the youth, who hurried to prepare it. He took cream and milk, and the calf which he had prepared, and placed these before them. He stood over them beneath the tree, and they ate. They said to him, Where is Sarah, your wife? And he said, Behold, in the tent. And he said, I will surely return to you at this time next year, and behold, Sarah, your wife, will have a son. Now Sarah was listening at the entrance of the tent which was behind him. Now Abraham and Sarah were old, well on in years. The manner of women had ceased to be with Sarah. And Sarah laughed at herself, saying, After I have withered, shall I again have delicate skin? And my husband is old. Then Yahweh said to Abraham, Why is it that Sarah laughed, saying, Shall I in truth bear a child, though I have aged? Is anything beyond Yahweh? At the appointed time, I will return to you at this time next year, and Sarah will have a son. Sarah denied it, saying, I did not laugh, for she was frightened. But he said, No, you laughed, indeed. So the men got up from there and gazed down toward Sodom, while Abraham walked with them to escort them. And Yahweh said, Shall I conceal from Abraham what I do, now that Abraham is surely to become a great and mighty nation, and all the nations of the earth shall bless themselves by him? For I have loved him, because he commands his children and his household after him, that they keep the way of Yahweh, doing charity and justice, in order that Yahweh might then bring upon Abraham that which he had spoken of him. So Yahweh said, Because the outcry of Sodom and Gomorrah has become great, and because their sin has been very grave, I will descend and see. If they act in accordance with its outcry which has come to me, then destruction. And if not, I will know. Shalom, Boker Tov. בוקר אור.
שולח את זה לאנשהו? תצלם את עצמך או מה?
כן, כן, אני עושה סרט, כן, של החברים שלי.
ביחד, ככה.
לא ביחד, אחר כך. אני אשלח אחר כך.
כל אחד...
כן, להתראות, יום נעים. תגידי שלום ליוסי.
כן, תודה.
תודה. So continuing in verse 22. Let's go back to verse 20. So Yahweh said, Because the outcry of Sodom and Gomorrah has become great, and because their sin has been very grave, I will descend and see. If they act in accordance with its outcry which has come to me, then destruction. And if not, I will know. The men had turned from there and went to Sodom, while Avraham was still standing before Yahweh. Avraham came forward and said, Will you also stamp out the righteous along with the wicked? What if there should be 50 righteous people in the midst of the city? Would you still stamp it out rather than spare the place for the sake of the 50 righteous people within it? It would be sacrilege to you to do such a thing, to bring death upon the righteous along with the wicked. So the righteous will be like the wicked. It would be sacrilege to you. Shall the judge of all the earth not do justice? And Yahweh said, If I find in Sodom 50 righteous people in the midst of the city, then I would spare the entire place on their account. Avram responded and said, Behold now, I desire to speak to my Lord, although I am but dust and ash. What if the 50 righteous people should lack 5? Would you destroy the entire city because of the 5? And he said, I will not destroy it if I find there 45. He further continued to speak to him, and he said, What if 40 would be found there? And he said, I will not act on account of the 40. And he said, Let not my Lord be annoyed, and I will speak. What if 30 would be found there? And he said, I will not act if I find there 30. So he said, Behold now, I desire to speak to my Lord. What if 20 would be found there? And he said, I will not destroy on account of the 20. So he said, Let not my Lord be annoyed, and I will speak but this once. What if 10 would be found there? And he said, I will not destroy on account of the 10. Yahweh departed when he had finished speaking to Avraham, and Avraham returned to his place. That's verse 3 and the end of chapter 18. So let's go back through this a little bit. Partway through, I changed from the English pronunciation of the name Abraham, and I switched to the Hebrew Avraham. There's no, that's the pronunciation in the Hebrew, Avraham. So the B becomes a V, and actually the B and the V are the same letter in the Hebrew language. They're just indicated by a dot to distinguish. The B has the dot and the V has no dot. It's the same letter otherwise. So going back to verse 1. where it's written, Yahweh appeared to him in the plains of Mamre while he was sitting at the entrance of the tent in the heat of the day. All right, in the Hebrew, that really is the name of the Father there. Vayira eleo Yahweh be'elone Mamre vehu yashav petach ha'ohel kechum hayom. And that means precisely, Yahweh appeared to him, Avram, in the plains of Mamre while he was sitting at the entrance of the tent in the heat of day. Then verse 2 continues, he lifted his eyes and saw, and behold, 3 men were standing over him. So it says in verse 1 that Yahweh appeared to him, and in verse 2, what he saw was 3 men. Does that mean that Yahweh is all 3 of the men? That would be convenient for Christians to be able to say, well, that's the Trinity. Well, read further, because when we get down to verse 22, the men had turned from there and went to Sodom, while Abraham was still standing before Yahweh. Okay? So that establishes that the 2 men are angels or messengers or assistants who appeared in the form of 2 men that were with the one man, Yahweh. So scratch out the Trinity idea. This is Yahweh in the form of a man appearing with 2 other men. Of course, the other significant thing here is that none of this was revealed to Abraham. All he saw was 3 men, and he was hospitable to these strangers to take care of them, to provide food for them, to wash their feet with water from the dust of the desert. He was kind to the strangers, and he invited them in to his place. It was only later that he began to discern what's really going on here. And then, of course, there's the famous wheeling and dealing going on there. Starting the bargain by reducing 50 down to 45, and then from 45 to 40, and then skipping the 5s and just jumping to the 10s, skipping from 40 down to 30, and then trying for getting 30 down to 20, and then the last one getting 20 down to 10, and that was the number that they agreed on. Interesting to see that Abraham here is bargaining with the King of the universe. Amazing. See, the King of the universe is interested in having relationship with us. He's interested in having relationship with Abraham, and that's what he showed there. So they had a back and forth wheeling and dealing conversation. Fascinating. Not going to go more into that. But again, in verse 22, it's written that the men had turned from there and went to Sodom, while Abraham was still standing before Yahweh. And checking the Hebrew real quickly here, Omed lifnei Yahweh, ve'Avraham odnu omed lifnei Yahweh. Okay, that says that Avraham continued to stand before Yahweh. So that the other 2 men had left. They headed towards Sodom. And we know what happens there when they got to Sodom and came to visit Lot in his house. While they were doing that, while they were on the way, the one man, the main one, Yahweh, continued standing there talking with Abraham. And that's when Abraham started to do the wheel and deal. So the 2 angels, or the 2 messengers that were with Yahweh, they weren't present for this wheeling and dealing. So this also contradicts the popular belief in Judaism that Hashem, Yahweh, would never be interested in appearing in the form of a man, such as in the form of Messiah, Mashiach. And this is an argument that is used against the concept of Yeshua the Mashiach. We'll see what we have here is that contradicts that theology, that Judaism theology. Because we have right here, Judaism theology tries to say that when it says Yahweh here, it's just an angel of Yahweh. It's not really Yahweh, it's just an angel. And in other places, other texts, it's written that the angel of the Lord came and appeared. Well, in the Hebrew it says the angel of Yahweh came and appeared to, for example, Joshua. But here, there's no mention of an angel. So leaving that aside with Joshua for now, this is Genesis. This is Bereshit, chapter 18. It's very early in the book. And what we have here is that Yahweh appeared with two men. This is the plain reading of the text from the Hebrew. Yahweh appeared with two men to Abraham. Yahweh came and visited Abraham, and he ate food. He ate food. So this is a preview of what is to come later on. We also saw in the Garden of Eden, Gan Eden, we saw that Yahweh walked and talked with Adam and Eve every day in the cool of the day. Every day he's walking. How does Elohim walk if he doesn't have legs? This is Yahweh appearing. He can appear in any form that he wants. But in the Garden of Eden, he appeared in the form of a man. In Genesis 18, he appeared in the form of a man. That's what Abraham saw. He saw three men. One of them was Yahweh. So this is Yahweh appearing in the form of a man. We believe that Yeshua is Yahweh appearing in the form of a man, except that time he's just not popping onto the scene as a full-grown man. That time, 2,000 years ago, he popped on the scene in the womb of the woman Miriam, who was a virgin. And don't listen to the arguments that say that she wasn't a virgin, or they're trying to twist the Hebrew language to twist that somehow. No. Alma means virgin. That's what it means in the Hebrew and in the Aramaic, because the New Testament was written in Aramaic, not in Greek, not in Hebrew, not in some other foreign language like Japanese. It was written in the local language, and Acts 1:19 demonstrates that. I'll get into that some other day. So let's close this right here for now. And after verse 23, and then the story continues, getting through into the wheeling and dealing and the discussion between Avraham and Yahweh. Then it finally ends. And Yahweh said, I will not destroy on account of the 10. Final verse. Yahweh departed when he had finished speaking to Avraham, and Avraham returned to his place. So the three men appeared. Avraham welcomed strangers as guests into his place. He called for Sarah to help prepare the food. He himself ran to the flock and took a calf and slaughtered the calf, and had one of his young men servants to prepare it. Meanwhile, he got the milk and the yogurt and the dairy products ready and brought them immediately to the three men, and they ate it. And then after the roasting was done, it doesn't take that much time to do the roasting, he brought the calf to them, and they ate food. They put food into their mouth and they ingested it. They swallowed, they chewed it and swallowed it. This is not, spirits hazy, you can put your hand right through them. This is not like that. This is they're appearing in the form of men who came by unannounced, without calling beforehand. They came by for lunch. And after lunch, two of the men started their move towards the city of Sodom, which in Hebrew is pronounced Sodom. They left the scene, and Yahweh continued talking with Avraham. And they did the wheeling and dealing. And then when Yahweh had finished speaking to Avraham, he left. And Avraham returned back to his place. So, thank you for reading along with me. This has been chapter 18 of Beresheet, Genesis chapter 18. Thanks so much.
Beresheet.